Ew, this is so weird. This is what we're reading today. I really don't know how to use this. It's a learning experience. Which one's Prisoner of Azkaban? Is that... I can't remember. I read the first one. We're about halfway through this one. If you've read them or watched them, I'm at the point where they find the writing on the wall. How do I fix being quiet? I really don't know how to fix being quiet. I can't do flips. I don't know, someone said I was quiet. Am I being quiet? I can talk louder. I'm literally using, if you couldn't tell by the really bad quality, I'm using my laptop. Oh man, sorry man. Okay, I'll be quieter. Okay. Before I read, I want to show you guys my rings. I've been collecting. Carnelian. Watching on mobile. Props. Carnelian, it's supposed to make you sexier, basically. Okay? This I got from a shop, which is also where I got... Frick. This one, and also this one. Okay, let's see. And then I got this one from Portugal, the gold one. I got the, like, this guy, the gold, also the gold one from Portugal. This one's from Pandora, it's daisies. Let's see, which one? This is pressed flowers from Etsy. And I think that's it. And then I have my Pandora bracelet that I got for Christmas. Ladybug. I do have the ring drip. I think rings are sexy. Ladybug, good luck. Strawberry, because love strawberries. It's supposed to... I'm trying to accumulate the things from places I've traveled. So I've been to France. Obviously, Eiffel Tower. What is this? This is a llama or an alpaca from when I went to Peru. Because, you know, they're there. And then... that's it. I just have a safety chain, so if it falls off, I don't drop it, because it's like a few $100s. It's a bit much. I am trying to catch them all. King Bean is me. If you didn't know, I thought that was obvious. Okay, also, have any of you been on, what's my favorite? Oh, Colombia, that's so cool. I want to go there. I want to go to Chile, too. And then I also want to go to, I love traveling. I want to go to like Scotland or something. Live lore. Oh my god, I'm not good at this. Live lore. There's a lot of it. I was an ugly child. So, you know. No, I've dropped so much lore on TikTok. Some obscene things that you guys should... I like the jinxes. Lies? Have you been on my TikTok? Oh, Liverpool, England. I've never been to England. I do have a job. I'm a paralegal. I'm currently saving up to go to law school, but that stuff is expensive, so we'll see about that. Oh, Norway's cool too. I really want to see the Northern Lights. Apparently they were in like everywhere earlier this year. Did anybody see them? Because I didn't. I was asleep. I go to sleep at like... Why are you talking about my forehead? Mm. I'm not showing you guys my forehead. Okay, wait. Has anybody see has anybody seen the Red Bull TikTok? Like people are trying to find, what is it? Like vanilla berry, and there was like a new pink one. I have never had Red Bull, and I almost died drinking Alani's. I had like 3 a day. I was totally addicted. It was bad. But Red Bull just looks so crisp. Like I feel like it would. What's up with the coffee flavored Monster? Because I feel like that would kill you. But I feel like women's perfume would taste good. Would it not? Mix them. That's disgusting. The white Monsters also do look crisp. I should try them. I'm just scared my heart's gonna fail. And then I got scared because of the Alani thing where there were like rats in them. So now I have to pour out all of my cans because I'm scared I'm gonna be like drinking a rat. Coffee Monster. That is nasty. Okay. But anyway, I've been on that and they look so crisp and I really want one really bad. And there's like a pink one and pink's my favorite color, so I really want to try that one so bad. Yeah, they make me feel like I'm gonna die too, but I feel like that's the fun of it. Like shaking uncontrollably, controllably before the gym. I've just been like raw dogging the gym at this point. I don't drink anything. I have like 2 Rice Krispies. I have been drinking this actually. What is this? An Aspire. It's supposed to be natural caffeine. It has like 80 milligrams of caffeine only. My will to live is low, but alas. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Why am I tripping? You asked for lore. Oh, it's just coffee. I don't know about that. Rains are the worst. Wait, let's see. Which ones have I had? I really used to like Ghost. Ghost has some good ones. I love them. I had C4, but that stuff makes you so itchy. I would be like seizing in my car before the gym. Alani's, I drank for months and months and months, like 2 a day. It was bad. I love them. I started with Celsius, but it started to taste too much like gasoline and not in a good way. And then I had like 1 or 2 Reigns. I didn't like them. One of my friends who was a Jimmy, she loves Reigns, so I don't know. But now we're off that kick. I also just had to take a break from the gym for like a month. So I just got back and I hit leg day the other day and I could not walk up the stairs. You know when it hurts so bad you like can't sit on the toilet? That's where I was at. It is acidic. I don't know. It's just what I imagined gasoline to taste like. Rise Sunny D. I do like orange juice. That is true. They are all acidic. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's fine. At some point, I'll probably play games on this account, but I'm too nervous because I'm really bad. Like, I'll start reading in a second. I'll start reading chapter by chapter. Thank you for the glasses. I'm blind. Prime is bad, but I think you have to be stupid to be drinking Prime. No offense. I want to play Lara Croft. I want to play Harry Potter, and I want to play the new Indiana Jones game so bad. I really like RPGs. But I swear, like, I get lost. I know they tell you where to go, but it's not intuitive for me. Free Prime. I'd rather have free Red Bull. They used to come into my university gym. I know. I'm just trying to talk, guys. I've been home. I didn't feel well today, so I stayed home. So I haven't been talking to anyone, and I need to, like, word vomit. The Indiana Jones looks so good. I used to have such a big crush on Harrison Ford. It was bad. Free Starbucks. I don't like Starbucks, guys. I don't like coffee. I like matcha, though. Okay, I'll read this. I'm embarrassed now. This is a long chapter, too. It's 21 pages. I tried Uncharted, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. Mass Effect. I've heard of it. I don't remember what it is, though. I've also wanted to play Elden Ring. If you guys know Nora Fawn on TikTok, she's like a few million followers. She had really good cosplay on it, which made me want to play it, but I'm too scared. I'm good at in-person poker. Believe it or not. I have a crazy poker face. But I don't play it because I don't like gambling because I have no money. Occasionally, I'll get some of you guys. I read every single one of your guys' DMs, in case you didn't know, because I'm nosy. And I am not ready for Elden Ring. I know I'm not, which is why I'm not playing it. I'm not online gambling. I can't do it. But I read some of the DMs on Instagram. And you guys are like asking for money, and guys, I don't have it. This is not where you're gonna get it. Go text like Sophie Rain or something, because it's not here. It's not here. Oh, I did play Cyberpunk. And I liked it a lot. Asking for money is crazy. Unless you know if they're rich, then that's fine. Casino stream? Never. But anyway, Cyberpunk was really good, and also, what is the TV show that was like kind of based around Cyberpunk? It was Blade Runner, the TV show animated one. Crazy good. Yes, Edge Runners. Yeah, that was good. I watched that like 2 times over. It was good. I like the aesthetic, and I really like the Blade Runner movie with, what is her name? Ana de Armas and Ryan Gosling. Okay, I'm going to start reading. The writing on the wall. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. I haven't watched the second season of Squid Games. I'm kind of scared to. I don't think it's going to live up to the hype. The first season was good, but I don't know about that one. We'll have to see. I heard it's kind of good, but the first few episodes are slow. I don't really want to. I've been watching Dark, the like 3-season TV show. Alice in Borderland is better. Yes, I'm gonna read. Shh. K-dramas are good. I used to have I had a, what's it called? I liked K-pop for a while there. And then I grew out of it, but. Okay, I'm gonna read. And guys, have you watched Dan to Dan? Because that was good. Kind of weird, like, first 2 episodes, I will say. But very good. I would watch again. I like to talk. Okay. What's going on here? Attracted, no doubt, by Malfoy's shout, Argus Filch came shouldering his way through the crowd. Then he saw Mrs. Norris and fell back, clutching his face in horror. My cat! What's happened to Mrs. Norris? He shrieked, and his popping eyes fell on Harry. You, he screeched. You've murdered my cat. You've killed her. I'll kill you. Argus! Dumbledore had arrived on the scene, followed by a number of other teachers. In seconds, he had swept past Harry, Ron, and Hermione and detached Mrs. Norris from the torch bracket. Come with me, Argus, he said to Filch. You too, Mr. Potter, Mr. Weasley, and Miss Granger. Lockhart stepped forward eagerly. My office is nearest, headmaster, just upstairs. Please feel free. Thank you, Gilderoy, said Dumbledore. The silent crowd parted to let them pass. Lockhart, looking excited and important, hurried after Dumbledore. So did Professors McGonagall and Snape. As they entered Lockhart's darkened office, there was a flurry of movement across the walls. Harry saw several of the Lockharts in the pictures dodging out of sight, their hair in rollers. The real Lockhart lit the candles on his desk and stood back. Dumbledore laid Mrs. Norris on the polished surface and began to examine her. Harry, Ron, and Hermione exchanged tense looks and sank into chairs outside the pool of candlelight, watching. The tip of Dumbledore's long, crooked nose was barely an inch from Mrs. Norris's fur. He was looking at her closely through his half-moon spectacles, his long fingers gently prodding and poking. Professor McGonagall was bent almost as close, her eyes narrowed. Snape loomed behind them, half in shadow, wearing a most peculiar expression. It was as though he was trying hard not to smile. And Lockhart was hovering around all of them, making suggestions. It was definitely a curse that killed her, probably the transmogrifian torture. I've seen it used many times, so unlikely I wasn't there. I know the very counter curse that would have saved her. Lockhart's comments were punctured by Filch's dry, raking sobs. He was slumped in a chair by the desk, unable to look at Mrs. Norris, his face in his hands. Much as he detested Filch, Harry couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for him. Not nearly as sorry as he felt for himself. If Dumbledore believed Filch, he would be expelled for sure. That's one page down. I don't love Harry Potter. I just felt like I needed to read them because I'm a reader. So, I think. Yeah, I don't like them. I liked the ambiance of the school, but that was about it. I watched Supernatural. I watched Supernatural when I was younger. Did I see Game of Thrones? Yes. I hadn't seen it until maybe 4 years ago, and then I watched the whole thing through. And it was great. The ending, of course, as everyone says, was terrible. Terrible, terrible. They did terrible things. I don't work at a library. I would work at a library. Vampire Diaries was also good. I feel like the ending was so sad. I can't even think about it. That is funny, renting Harry Potter books at school. I'm not ready for Lord of the Rings. I agree with that. I'm not going to read that right now. I have Lord of the Rings books set up, and I also have the Game of Thrones books also set up. But they're just sitting there. They're going to wait until I can. I watched Dexter. I like all of the, the new series. Is the new Dexter series good? Because it looks terrible. It looks absolutely terrible, and I do not want to watch it. I'm on the second Harry Potter book. Yeah, it looks bad. I don't know why you would start watching it. You're like ruining the first series. Okay. Dumbledore was now muttering strange words under his breath and tapping Mrs. Norris with his wand, but nothing happened. She continued to look as though she had been recently stuffed. I remember something very similar happening in Awuga Dugu, said Lockhart. A series of attacks. The full story is in my autobiography. I was able to provide the townsfolk with various amulets, which cleared the matter up at once. The photographs of Lockhart on the wall were all nodding in agreement as he talked. One of them had forgotten to remove his hairnet. At last Dumbledore straightened up. She's not dead, Argus, he said softly. Lockhart stopped abruptly in the middle of counting the numbers of murders he had prevented. Not dead, choked Filch, looking through his fingers at Mrs. Norris. But why is she all stiff and frozen? She has been petrified, said Dumbledore. Ah, I thought so, said Lockhart. But how, I cannot say. Ask him, shrieked Filch, turning his blotched and tear-stained face to Harry. No second year could have done this, said Dumbledore firmly. It would take dark magic of the most advanced. He did it, Filch spat, his pouchy face purpling. You saw what he wrote on the wall. He found in my office. He knows I'm a... Filch's face worked horribly. He knows I'm a squib, he finished. I never touched Mrs. Norris, Harry said loudly, uncomfortably aware of everyone looking at him, including all the Lockharts on the walls, and I don't even know what a squib is. Rubbish, snarled Filch. He saw my quick spell letter. If I might speak, headmaster, said Snape from the shadows, and Harry's sense of foreboding increased. He was sure nothing Snape had to say was going to do him any good. Potter and his friends may have simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time, he said, a slight sneer curling his mouth as though he doubted it. But we do have a set of suspicious circumstances here. Why was he in the upstairs corridor at all? Why wasn't he at the Halloween fest? Harry, Ron, and Hermione all launched into an explanation about the Death Day party. There were hundreds of ghosts. They'll tell you we were there. But why not join the feast afterwards, said Snape, his black eyes glittering in the candlelight. Why go up to that corridor? Ron and Hermione looked at Harry. Because, Harry said, his heart thumping very fast. Something told him it would sound very far-fetched if he told them he had been led there by a bodiless voice no one but he could hear. Because we were tired and wanted to go to bed, he said. Without any supper, said Snape, a triumphant smile flickering across his gaunt face. I didn't think ghosts provided food fit for living people at their parties. We weren't hungry, said Ron loudly, as his stomach gave a huge grumble. Snape's nasty smile, say that 3 times fast, widened. I suggest, Headmaster, that Potter is not being entirely truthful, he said. It might be a good idea if he were deprived of certain privileges until he's ready to tell us the whole story. I personally feel he should be taken off the Gryffindor Quidditch team until he's ready to be honest. Really, Severus? Said Professor McGonagall sharply. I see no reason to stop the boy playing Quidditch. The cat wasn't hit over the head with a broomstick. There is no evidence at all that Potter has done anything wrong. Dumbledore was giving Harry a searching look. His twinkling, light blue gaze made Harry feel as though he was being x-rayed. Innocent until proven guilty, Severus, he said firmly. Snape looked furious, so did Filch. My cat has been petrified, he shrieked, his eyes popping. I want to see some punishment. We will be able to cure her, Argus, said Dumbledore patiently. Professor Sprout recently managed to procure some mandrakes. As soon as they have reached their full size, I will have a potion made that will revive Mrs. Norris. I'll make it, Lockhart butted in. I must have done it 100 times. I could whip up a mandrake restorative draught in my sleep. Excuse me, said Snape icily, but I believe I am the potions master at this school. There was a very awkward pause. You may go, Dumbledore said to Harry, Ron, and Hermione. They went as quickly as they could without actually running. When they were a floor up from Lockhart's office, they turned into an empty classroom and closed the door behind them quietly. Harry squinted at his friends' darkened faces. Do you think I should have told them about the voice I heard? No, said Ron without hesitation. Hearing voices no one else can hear isn't a good sign, even in the wizarding world. Something in Ron's voice made Harry sick. Harry asked, You do believe me, don't you? Of course I do, said Ron quickly, but you must admit it's weird. I know it's weird, said Harry. The whole thing's weird. What was the writing on the wall about? The chamber has been opened? What's that supposed to mean? You know, it sort of rings a bell, said Ron slowly. I think someone told me about a story about a secret chamber at Hogwarts once. Must have been Bill. And what on earth's a squib, said Harry. To his surprise, Ron stifled a snicker. Well, it's not funny, really, but as it's Filch, he said, a squib is someone who was born into a wizarding family but hasn't any magic powers. Kind of the opposite of muggle-born wizards, but squibs are quite unusual. If Filch's trying to learn magic from a quickspell course, I reckon he must be a squib. It would explain a lot, like why he hates students so much. Ron gave a satisfied smile. He's bitter. A clock chimed somewhere. Midnight, said Harry. We'd better get to bed before Snape comes along and tries to frame us for something else. I don't know what a mod is. I am not doing British accents. That comes when I am tired. Okay. A Russian accent. I don't even know what that sounds like. ASMR. Type. British accent? You do a British accent? And I can click a name. Guys, I don't know how to use technology. Okay, how do I? Bro, acting like a boomer. Honestly, I'm just trying to read with my glasses. Leave me alone. I will continue. Also, if you want to, you should put dinner suggestions in the chat because I don't know what to make for dinner. I've been getting into cooking and baking. I make some mean chocolate chip cookies, but I'm only really good at cooking. I make a mean chicken breast. I make good tacos. I made some sick guacamole the other day. That was good, but I guess that's not really dinner. It's fine. Chicken, rice, and broccoli. I do that all the time because, of course, I need to get a voluptuous gluteus maximus, but it's really, okay, I will say it's annoying because I couldn't work out for like a month, maybe a month and a half. So I was doing like only cardio. So of course I was losing my gains that I have worked for like 4 years on in the gym, right? So butt flat. Not actually flat, but flatter than I would like. But of course, my like shoulders and biceps are still massive. They're enormous. I went back to the gym the other day and I could still bicep curl like 20. I was like 30s. I could barely do a 30. It's fine. But I was like doing working sets of 25, which I feel buff. I feel like I could bend you over. Creme brulee. I don't know about that. Casey strip? Is that a steak? I don't like steaks. Hey, yo. Yeah, I don't like steak. I only like turkey, chicken, salmon, and pretty much every single fish. Yeah, I hope so. I hope it will. Okay. For a few days, the school could talk of little else but the attack on Mrs. Norris. Filch kept it fresh in everyone's mind by pacing the spots where she had been attacked, as though he thought the attacker might come back. Harry had seen him scrubbing the message on the wall with Mrs. Scower's all-purpose magical mess remover, but to no effect. The words still gleamed as brightly as ever on the stone. When Filch wasn't guarding the scene of the crime, he was skulking red-eyed through the corridors, lunging out at unsuspecting students and trying to put them in detention for things like breathing loudly and looking happy. Ginny Weasley seemed very disturbed by Mrs. Norris's fate. According to Ron, she was a great cat lover. But you haven't really got to know Mrs. Norris, Ron told her bracingly. Honestly, we're much better off without her. Ginny's lip trembled. Stuff like this doesn't really happen at Hogwarts, Ron assured her. They'll catch the maniac who did it and have him out here in no time. I just hope he's got time to petrify Filch before he's expelled. I'm only joking, Ron added hastily as Ginny blanched. The attack had also had an effect on Hermione. It was quite unusual for Hermione to spend a lot of time reading, but she was now doing almost nothing else, nor could Harry and Ron get much response from her when they asked what she was up to, and not until the following Wednesday did they find out. Harry had been held back in potions where Snape had made him stay behind to scrape tube worms off the desks. After a hurried lunch, he went upstairs to meet Ron in the library, and Justin Finch Fletchley, the Hufflepuff boy from Herbology, coming toward him. Harry had just opened his mouth to say hello when Justin caught sight of him, turned abruptly, and sped off in the opposite direction. Harry found Ron at the back of the library, measuring his history of magic homework. Professor Binns had asked for a 3-foot-long composition on the medieval assembly of European wizards. I don't believe it. I'm still 8 inches short, said Ron, furiously letting go of his parchment, which sprang back into a roll, and Hermione's done 4 feet 7 inches, and her writing's tiny. Where is she? Asked Harry, grabbing the tape measure and unrolling his own homework. Somewhere over there, said Ron, pointing along the shelves, looking for another book. I think she's trying to read the whole library before Christmas. Harry told Ron about Justin Finch Fletchley running away from him. Don't know why you care. I thought he was a bit of an idiot, said Ron, scribbling away, making his writing as large as possible. All that junk about Lockhart being so great. Hermione emerged from between the bookshelf. She looked irritable and at last seemed ready to talk to them. All the copies of Hogwarts: A History have been taken out, she said, sitting down next to Harry and Ron. But there's a 2-week waiting list. I wish I hadn't left my copy at home, but I couldn't fit it into my trunk with all the Lockhart books. Why do you want it? Said Harry. The same reason everybody else wants it, said Hermione, to read up on the legend of the Chamber of Secrets. What's that? Said Harry quickly. That's just it. I can't remember, said Hermione, biting her lip. And I can't find the story anywhere else. Hermione, let me read your composition, said Ron, desperately, checking his watch. No, I won't, said Hermione, suddenly severe. You've had 10 days to finish it. I only need another 2 inches. Come on. The bell rang. Ron and Hermione led the way to History of Magic bickering. History of Magic was the dullest subject on their schedule. Professor Binns, who taught it, was their only ghost teacher, and the most exciting thing that ever happened in his class was entering the room through the blackboard. Ancient and shriveled, many people said he hadn't noticed he was dead. He had simply got up to teach one day and left his body behind him in the armchair in front of the staff room fire. His routine had not varied in the slightest since. Today was as boring as ever. Professor Binns opened his notes and began to read a flat drone, like an old vacuum cleaner, until nearly everyone in the class was in a deep stupor, occasionally coming to long enough to copy down a name or date, then falling asleep again. He had been speaking for half an hour when something happened that had never happened before. Hermione put a hand up. Professor Binns, glancing up in the middle of the deadly dull lecture on the International Warlock Convention of 1289, looked amazed. Miss Granger, Professor, I was wondering if you could tell us anything about the Chamber of Secrets, said Hermione in a clear voice. Dean Thomas, who had been sitting with his mouth hanging open, gazing out of the window, jerked out of his trance. Lavender Brown's head came up off her arms, and Neville Longbottom's elbow slipped off his desk. Professor Binns blinked. My subject is History of Magic, he said in his dry, wheezy voice. I deal with facts. Miss Granger, not myths and legends. He cleared his throat with a small noise like chalk snapping and continued. In September of that year, a subcommittee of Sardinian sorcerers... He stuttered to a halt. Hermione's hand was waving in the air again. Miss Grant? Please, sir, don't legends always have a basis in fact? Professor Binns was looking at her in such amazement, Harry was sure no student had ever interrupted him before, alive or dead. Well, said Professor Binns slowly. Yes, one could argue that, I suppose. He peered at Hermione as though he had never seen a student properly before. However, the legend of which you speak is a very sensational, even ludicrous tale. But the whole class was now hanging on Professor Binns' every word. He looked dimly at them all, every face turned to his. Harry could tell he was completely thrown off by such an unusual show of interest. Oh, very well, he said. Let me see. The Chamber of Secrets. You all know, of course, that Hogwarts was founded over 1,000 years ago. The precise date is uncertain. By the 4 greatest witches and wizards of the age. The 4 schoolhouses are named after them. Godric Gryffindor, Helga Hufflepuff, Rowena Ravenclaw, and Salazar Slytherin. They built this castle together, far from prying Muggle eyes, for it was an age when magic was feared by common people, and witches and wizards suffered much persecution. He paused, gazed blearily around the room, and continued. For a few years, the founders worked in harmony together, seeking out youngsters who showed signs of magic and bringing them to this castle to be educated. But then disagreements sprang up between them. A rift began to grow between Slytherin and the others. Slytherin wished to be more selective about the students admitted to Hogwarts. He believed that magical learning should be kept within all magical families. He disliked taking students of Muggle parentage, believing them to be untrustworthy. After a while, there was a serious argument on the subject between Slytherin and Gryffindor, and Slytherin left the school. Professor Binns paused again, pursing his lips, looking like a wrinkled old tortoise. Reliable historical sources tell us this much, he said. But these honest facts have been obscured by the fanciful legend of the Chamber of Secrets. The story goes that Slytherin had built a hidden chamber in the castle, of which the other founders knew nothing. Slytherin, according to the legend, sealed the Chamber of Secrets so that none would be able to open it until his own true heir arrived at the school. The heir alone would be able to unseal the Chamber of Secrets, unleash the horror within, and use it to purge the school of all who were unworthy to study magic. There was silence as he finished telling the story, but it wasn't the usual sleepy silence that filled Professor Binns' classes. There was unease in the air as everyone continued to watch him, hoping for more. Professor Binns looked faintly annoyed. The whole thing is errant nonsense, of course, he said. Naturally, this school has been searched for evidence of such a chamber many times by the most learned witches and wizards, but it does not exist. A tale told to frighten the gullible. Hermione's hand was back in the air. Sir, what exactly do you mean by the horror within the chamber? That is believed to be some sort of monster, which the heir of Slytherin alone can control, said Professor Binns in his dry, reedy voice. The class exchanged nervous looks. I'll tell you, the thing does not exist, said Professor Binns, shuffling his notes. There is no chamber and no monster. But sir, said Seamus Finnegan, if the chamber can only be opened by the Slytherin's true heir, no one else would be able to find it, would they? Nonsense, oh Flaherty, said Professor Binns in an aggravated tone. If a long succession of Hogwarts headmasters and headmistresses haven't found the thing, but Professor, piped up Pavarti Patil, you'd probably have to use dark magic to open it. Just because a wizard doesn't use dark magic doesn't mean he can't, Miss Pennyfeather, snapped Professor Binns. I repeat, if the likes of Dumbledore... But maybe you've got to be related to Slytherin, so Dumbledore couldn't, began Dean Thomas, but Professor Binns had had enough. That will do, he said sharply. It is a myth. It does not exist. There is not a shred of evidence that Slytherin has ever built so much as a secret broom cupboard. I regret telling you such a foolish story. We will return, if you please, to history, to solid, believable, veritable fact. And within 5 minutes, the class had sunk back into its usual torpor. Necromancy? Okay. Yes, when we did popcorn and someone called my name, I was in my zone. I was in my element. I was like, I can show off. This is my one and only skill. I like it. It's fun. Vampire Diaries was good. I was what were their names? Stefan. I was a Stefan girl. I liked Stefan. In Summerhalder has some crazy eyes. Alaric! I forgot about him! What was the ant's name? The hot ant? They're like young ant. Klaus. I didn't like Klaus. I really like... You know Klaus is my voice deep, or is your voice just high? Who was the brunette girl who was, like, involved with Klaus? I can't remember if they were, like, sisters or if they were, like, having things or something. But she was pretty. I liked her. Thoughts on the Beatles? Of course I love the Beatles. Did you see that one movie where everybody forgot about the Beatles and then that one guy, like, stole all of their songs? Haley? Maybe. Yesterday, yes. It was an interesting movie. I thought the premise was really cool. I got a little bit bored, but I liked it, and that guy was a good singer too. Aunt Jenna, they did her dirty. She was my favorite. Yeah, seeing John Lennon old was really sad. It was a good movie. I really liked it. I really want to get Wild Robot. Why is that familiar? I do watch anime. Okay, so let's see. What have I read? I mean, watched. My first ever anime, this like piece is pissing me off. I'm sorry. Was Parasite, like with a Y. The anime, obviously, not the in-person TV show that just came out. So good. And then I watched Attack on Titans. I got right into it. Obviously loved it. And then I've watched Dan to Dan. I'm having like a blank. Oh, Death Note was good. It was good. Misa was great. I want to cosplay her once. Attack on Titan is honestly creme de la creme, I will say. I rewatched Attack on Titan too. I need to rewatch it again, honestly, just like over and over again. Name animes for me, and I'll tell you if I've read them. I mean, what? Someone gifted me the entire Tokyo Ghoul manga. Tokyo Ghoul was one of my favorite animes for the longest time. I think they messed it up on season 2, or was it 3 or something. The first part was good. So good. Frieren. I'm gonna watch that one. That one looked good, but I haven't watched it. One Punch Man I tried and I didn't like it. I also started watching Hunter x Hunter. Good. I started watching One Piece, but it's just so long. It's too long. I watched the I want to do a Sasha cosplay so bad. From AOT. I feel like she is me and I am her. I like bread. I like potatoes. Berserk, no. I want to do a cyberpunk cosplay Lucy. Who's Asuna from? I'm still learning. How do I hit ban? I looked. Can't see nothing. How do I do it? I click on it. Whoa. Maybe I should look on my phone. I think I did it. There we go. That was crazy. Fave Beatles song. I don't know. That guy was. No, we're not ripping him. He is not resting in peace. That was obscene. That was excessive. That was diabolical. Ugh. I don't have a favorite Beatles song either. I really want to get a turntable, like a record player to play the Beatles. I want the Beatles. I also isn't at 200K on what? You need to watch Solo Leveling. What is that? I've never heard of that. What's it on? I can't do a backflip. I can't do a backflip. Oh, I have a Crunchyroll that I never use. Wait, I think I have a list on my phone. Oh. I think I have a list on my phone of all the animes I've watched. Hold on. I got you on them pirate site. Oh. I'll do a Lego building stream. I am building R2D2 right now. R2D2. Is this it? No. Well, I thought I had a list, but I don't have a list. The only one I thought about was or forgot was I watched The Promised Neverland for like one season. It was good, and then it fell off, or maybe I fell off. I don't remember. I have Abbey Road, The White Album. Their albums are really good. Oh, if you got me the 4,000 piece Death Star, I would do it on stream. Um, but that's crazy. I think I would go crazy. What does that say? It did get done dirty. It was so good. It was so good. I don't know what happened. JJK. I feel like I liked it. I feel like it's very TikTok-y. It was good. I thought it was really good. You know what's funny? I watched season 1, season 2, and then I stopped on the last episode. Don't tell me. I still haven't watched the last episode because I like don't want it to be over. So whenever I feel like, okay, dude, go off, queen. So whenever I feel like I want to finish it, I will. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I said that, but it's just like you should watch anime. It's really good. Okay, I'm gonna continue. All right. I always knew Salazar Slytherin was a twisted old loony. Ron told Harry and Hermione as they fought their way through the teeming corridors at the end of the lesson to drop off their bags before dinner. But I never knew he started all this pure blood stuff. I wouldn't be in this house if you paid. I wouldn't be in this house if you paid me. Honestly, if the Sorting Hat had tried to put me in Slytherin, I'd have got the train straight back home. Hermione nodded fervently, but Harry didn't say anything. His stomach had dropped unpleasantly. Harry had never told Ron and Hermione that the Sorting Hat had seriously considered putting him in Slytherin. He could remember, as though it was yesterday, the small voice that had spoken in his ear when he'd placed the hat on his head a year before. You could be great, you know. It's all in your head, and Slytherin would help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that. But Harry, who had already heard of Slytherin House's reputation for turning out dark wizards, had thought desperately, not Slytherin, and the hat had said, oh well, if you're sure, better be Gryffindor. As they were shunted along in the throng, Colin Creevey went past. Hiya, Harry. Hello, Colin, said Harry automatically. Harry, a boy in my class has been saying you're... But Colin was so small, he couldn't fight against the tide of people bearing him towards the Great Hall. They heard him squeak, see ya, Harry, and he was gone. What's a boy in his class saying about you? Hermione wondered. That I'm Slytherin's heir, I expect, said Harry, his stomach dropping another inch or so as he suddenly remembered the way Justin Finch Fletchley had run away from him at lunchtime. People here will believe anything, said Ron in disgust. The crowd thinned, and they were able to climb the next staircase without difficulty. Do you really think there's a Chamber of Secrets? Ron asked Hermione. I don't know, she said, frowning. Dumbledore couldn't cure Mrs. Norris, and that makes me think that whatever attacked her might not be, well, human. As she spoke, they turned a corner and found themselves at the end of the very corridor where the attack had happened. They stopped and looked. The scene was just as it had been that night, except that there were no stiff cats hanging from the torch bracket, and an empty chair stood against the wall bearing the stood against the wall bearing the message the Chamber of Secrets has been opened. That's where Filch has been keeping guard, Ron muttered. They looked at each other. The corridor was deserted. Can't hurt to have a poke around, said Harry, dropping his bag and getting to his hands and knees so that he could crawl along, searching for clues. Scorch marks, he said. Here and here. Come and look at this, said Hermione. This is funny. Harry got up and crossed to the window next to the message on the wall. Hermione was pointing at the topmost pane, where around 20 spiders were scuttling, apparently fighting to get through a small crack. A long, silvery thread was dangling like a rope, as though they had all climbed it in their hurry to get outside. Have you ever seen spiders act like this? Said Hermione wonderingly. No, said Harry. Have you, Ron? Ron? He looked over his shoulder. Ron was standing well back and seemed to be fighting the impulse to run. What's up? Said Harry. I don't like spiders, said Ron tensely. I never knew that, said Hermione, looking at Ron in surprise. You've used spiders in potions loads of times. I don't mind them dead, said Ron, who was carefully looking anywhere but out the window. I just don't like the way they move. Hermione giggled. It's not funny, said Ron fiercely. If you must know, when I was 3, Fred turned my teddy bear into a great, big, filthy spider because I broke his toy broomstick. You wouldn't like them either if you'd been holding your bear and suddenly it had too many legs, and he broke off shuddering. Hermione was obviously still trying not to laugh. Feeling they had better get off the subject, Harry said, Remember all the water on the floor? Where did that come from? Someone's mopped it up. It was about here, said Ron, recovering himself to walk a few paces past Filch's chair and pointing level with his door. He reached for the brass doorknob but suddenly withdrew his hand as though he'd been burned. What's the matter? Said Harry. Can't go in there, said Ron gruffly. That's a girl's toilet. Oh, Ron, there won't be anyone in there, said Hermione, standing up and coming over. That's Moaning Myrtle's place. Come on, let's have a look. And ignoring the large out-of-order sign, she opened the door. It was the gloomiest, most depressing bathroom Harry had ever set foot in. Under a large, cracked, and spotted mirror were a row of chipped sinks. The floor was damp and reflected the dull light given off by the stubs of a few candles burning low in their holders. The wooden doors to the stalls were flaking and scratched, and one of them was dangling off its hinges. Hermione put her fingers to her lips and set off toward the end of the stall. When she reached it, she said, Hello, Myrtle. How are you? Harry and Ron went to look. Moaning Myrtle was floating above the tank of the toilet, picking a spot on her chin. This is a girl's bathroom, she said, eyeing Ron and Harry suspiciously. They're not girls. No, Hermione agreed. I just wanted to show them how nice it is in here. She waved vaguely at the dirty old mirror and the damp floor. Ask her if she saw anything, Harry mouthed at Hermione. What are you whispering? Said Myrtle, staring at him. Nothing, Harry said quickly. We just wanted to ask. I wish people would stop talking behind my back, said Myrtle in a voice choked with tears. I do have feelings, you know, even if I am dead. Myrtle, no one wants to upset you, said Hermione. No one wants to upset me. That's a good one, howled Myrtle. My life was nothing but misery at this place, and now people come along ruining my death. We wanted to ask you if you've seen anything funny lately, said Hermione quickly. Because a cat was attacked right outside your front door on Halloween. Did you see anyone near here that night? Said Harry. I wasn't paying attention, said Myrtle dramatically. Peeves upset me so much I came in here and tried to kill myself. Then of course I remembered that I'm already dead, said Ron helpfully. Myrtle gave a tragic sob, rose up in the air, turned over, and dived headfirst into the toilet, splashing water all over them and vanishing from sight, although from the direction of her muffled sobs she had come to rest somewhere in the U-bend. Harry and Ron stood with their mouths open, but Hermione shrugged wearily and said, Honestly, that was almost cheerful for Myrtle. Come on, let's go. Harry had barely closed the door when Myrtle's gurgling sobs when a loud voice made all three of them jump. Ron! Percy Weasley had stopped dead at the head of the stairs, prefect badge agleam, an expression of complete shock on his face. That's a girl's bathroom, he gasped. What were you... Just having a look around, Ron shrugged. Clues, you know? Percy swelled in a manner that reminded Harry forcefully of Mrs. Weasley. Get away from there, Percy said, striding toward them and starting to bustle them along, flapping his arms. Don't you care what this looks like, coming back here while everyone's at dinner? Why shouldn't we be here, said Ron hotly, stopping short and glaring at Percy. Listen, we never laid a finger on that cat. That's what I told Ginny, said Percy fiercely. But she still seems upset to think you're going to be expelled. I've never seen her so upset. Crying her eyes out, you might think of her. All the first years are thoroughly overexcited by this business. You don't care about Ginny, said Ron, whose ears were now reddening. You're just worried I'm going to mess up your chances of being head boy. 5 points from Gryffindor. Percy said tersely, fingering his prefect badge. And I hope it teaches you a lesson. No more detective work, or I'll write to Mum. As he strode off, the back of his neck as red as Ron's ears. Percy Jackson was good. I read the first book. I read the first book earlier this year when it was good, but I got distracted by Harry Potter. Okay. Harry, Ron, and Hermione chose seats as far as possible from Percy in the common room that night. Ron was still in a very bad temper and kept blotting his charms homework. When he reached absently for his wand to remove the smudges, it ignited the parchment. Fuming almost as much as his homework, Ron slammed the Standard Book of Spells Grade 2 shut. To Harry's surprise, Hermione followed suit. Who can it be, though? She said in a quiet voice, as though continuing a conversation they had just been having. Who would want to frighten all the Squibs and Muggleborns out of Hogwarts? Let's think, said Ron in mock puzzlement. Who do we know who thinks Muggleborns are scum? He looked at Hermione. Hermione looked back, unconvinced. If you're talking about Malfoy, of course I am, said Ron. You heard him. You'll be next, mudbloods. Come on, you've only got to look at his foul rat face to know it's him. Malfoy, the heir of Slytherin, said Hermione skeptically. Look at his family, said Harry, closing his books too. The whole lot of them have been in Slytherin. He's always boasting about it. They could easily be Slytherin's descendants. His father's definitely evil enough. They could have had the key to the Chamber of Secrets for centuries, said Ron, handing it down father to son. Well, said Hermione cautiously, I suppose it's possible. But how do we prove it? Said Harry darkly. There might be a way, said Hermione slowly, dropping her voice still further with a quick glance across the room at Percy. Of course it would be difficult, and dangerous, very dangerous. We'd be breaking about 50 school rules, I expect. If in a month or so you feel like explaining. You'll have to let us know, won't you? Said Ron irritably. All right, said Hermione coldly. What we'll need to do is to get inside the Slytherin common room and ask Malfoy a few questions without him realizing it's us. But that's impossible, Harry said as Ron laughed. No, it's not, said Hermione. All we'd need would be some polyjuice potion. What's that? Said Ron and Harry together. Snape mentioned it in class a few weeks ago. Do you think we've got nothing better to do in potions than listen to Snape? Muttered Ron. It transforms you into somebody else. Think about it. We could change into 3 of the Slytherins. No one would know it was us. Malfoy would probably tell us anything. He's probably boasting about it in the Slytherin common room right now, if only we could hear him. This polyjuice stuff sounds a bit dodgy to me, said Ron, frowning. What if we were stuck looking like 3 of the Slytherins forever? It wears off after a while, said Hermione, waving her hand impatiently. But getting hold of the recipe will be very difficult, Snape said. It was in a book called Most Potent Potions, and it's bound to be in the restricted section of the library. There was only one way to get out a book from the restricted section. You needed a signed note of permission from a teacher. Hard to see why we'd want the book, really, said Ron, if we weren't going to try and make one of the potions. I think, said Hermione, that if we made it sound as though we were just interested in the theory, we might stand a chance. Oh, come on, no teacher's going to fall for that, said Ron. They'd have to be really thick. Go piss, girl. We finished that chapter. Is that a Boston Terrier? I have 2 Boston Terriers. Do you want to see them? Let's see. Well, this is... Hold on. His name is Oliver. Ollie. And then I have one more. His name is Winston. Where is that man? know if you're going to be able to see this. Winston! He's an awkward boy. You missed my puppies. Okay. I'm going to do another one. I want to read another one. Okay. The Rogue Bludger. I remember this in the movies. Since the disastrous episode of the Pixies, Professor Lockhart had not brought live creatures to class. Instead, he read passages from his books to them and sometimes reenacted some of the more dramatic bits. He usually picked Harry to help him with these reconstructions. So far, Harry had been forced to play a simple Transylvanian villager whom Lockhart had cured of the babbling curse, and a yeti with a head cold, and a vampire who had been unable to eat anything except lettuce since Lockhart had to deal with him. Harry was hauled to the front of the class during their very next Defense Against the Arts lesson, this time acting a werewolf. If he hadn't had a good reason for keeping Lockhart in a good mood, he would have refused to do it. Nice loud howl, Harry, exactly. And then, if you'll believe it, I pounced like this, slammed him to the floor. Thus, with one hand, I managed to hold him down. With my other, I put my wand to his throat, and then I screwed up my remaining strength and performed the immensely complex amorphous charm. He let out a piteous moan. Go on, Harry. Higher than that. Good. The fur vanished, the fangs shrank, and he turned back into a man. Simple, yet effective. And another village will remember me forever as the hero who delivered them from the monthly terror of werewolf attacks. The bell rang, and Lockhart got to his feet. Homework. Compose a poem about my defeat of the Wagga Wagga werewolf. Sign copies of Magical Me to the author of the best one. The class began to leave. Harry returned to the back of the room where Ron and Hermione were waiting. Ready, Harry muttered. Wait till everyone's gone, said Hermione nervously. All right. She approached Lockhart's desk, a piece of paper clutched tightly in her hand. Harry and Ron right behind her. Professor Lockhart, Hermione stammered. I wanted to get this book out of the library just for background reading. She held out the piece of paper, her hand shaking slightly. But the thing is, it's in the restricted section of the library, so I need a teacher to sign for it. I'm sure it would help me understand why you say the gating with ghouls about slow-acting venoms. Ah, gating with ghouls, said Lockhart, taking the note from Hermione and smiling widely at her. Possibly my very favorite book. You enjoyed it? Oh, yes, said Hermione eagerly. So clever, the way you trapped the last one with the tea strainer. Well, I'm sure no one will mind me giving the best student of the year a little extra help, said Lockhart warmly, and he pulled out an enormous peacock quill. Yes, nice, isn't it? He said, misreading the revolted look on Ron's face. I usually save it for book signings. He scrawled an enormous, loopy signature on the note and handed it to Hermione. So, Harry, said Lockhart, while Hermione folded the note with fumbling fingers and slipped it into her bag. Tomorrow's the first Quidditch match of the season, I believe. Gryffindor against Slytherin, is it not? I hear you're a useful player. I was a seeker, too. I was asked to try for the national squad, but preferred to dedicate my life to the eradication of the dark forces. Still, if you ever feel the need for a little private training, don't hesitate to ask. Always happy to pass on my expertise to less able players. Harry made an indistinct noise in his throat and then hurried off to Ron and Hermione. I don't believe it, he said as the three of them examined the signature on the note. He didn't even look at the book we wanted. That's because he's a brainless git, said Ron. But who cares? We've got what we needed. He is not a brainless git, said Hermione shrilly as they half ran towards the library. Just because he said you were the best student of the year. They dropped their voices as they entered the muffled stillness of the library. Madame Pince, the librarian, was a thin, irritable woman who looked like an undurfed vulture. Most potent potions, she repeated suspiciously, trying to take the note from Hermione, but Hermione wouldn't let go. I was wondering if I could keep it, she said breathlessly. Oh, come on, said Ron, wrenching it from her grasp and thrusting it at Madame Pince. We'll get you another autograph. Lockhart will sign anything if it stands still long enough. Madame Pince held the note up to the light as though determined to detect a forgery, but it passed the test. She stalked away between the lofty shelves and returned several minutes later carrying a large and moldy-looking book. Hermione put it carefully into her bag and they left, trying not to walk too quickly or look too guilty. 5 minutes later, they were barricaded in Moaning Myrtle's out-of-order bathroom once again. Hermione had overridden Ron's objections by pointing out that it was the last place anyone in their right minds would go, so they were guaranteed some privacy. Moaning Myrtle was crying noisily in her stall, but they were ignoring her and she them. Hermione opened most potent potions carefully, and the three of them bent over the damp, spotted pages. It was clear from a glance why it belonged in the restricted section. Some of the potions had effects almost too gruesome to think about, and there were some very unpleasant illustrations, which included a man who seemed to have been turned inside out and a witch sprouting several pairs of extra arms out of her head. Here it is, said Hermione excitedly as she found the page headed. The Polyjuice Potion. It was decorated with drawings of people halfway through transforming into other people. Harry sincerely hoped the artist had imagined the looks of intense pain on their face. This is the most complicated potion I've ever seen, said Hermione as they scanned the recipe. Lacewing flies, leeches, fluxweed, and knotgrass, she murmured, running her fingers down the list of ingredients. Well, they're easy enough. They're in the student store cupboard. We can help ourselves. Oh, look, powdered horn of a bicorn. Don't know where we're going to get that. Shredded skin of a boomslang. That'll be tricky too. And of course, a bit of whoever we want to change into. Excuse me, said Ron sharply. What do you mean, a bit of whoever we're changing into? I'm drinking nothing with crab's toenails in it. Hermione continued as though she hadn't heard him. We won't have to worry about that yet, though, because we add those bits last. Ron turned speechless to Harry, who had another worry. Do you realize how much we're going to have to steal, Hermione? Shredded skin of a boomslang? That's definitely not in the student's cupboard. What are we going to do, break into Snape's private stores? I don't know if this is a good idea. Hermione shut the book with a snap. Well, if you two are going to chicken out, fine, she said. There were bright pink patches on her cheeks, and her eyes were brighter than usual. I don't want to break the rules, you know. I think threatening Muggle-borns is far worse than brewing up a difficult potion. But if you don't want to find out if it's Malfoy, I'll go straight to Madame Pince now and hand the book back in. I never thought I'd see the day when you'd be persuading us to break rules, said Ron. All right, we'll do it. But not toenails, okay? How long will it take to make anyway, said Harry as Hermione, looking happier, opened the book again. Well, since the fluxweed has got to be picked at the full moon and the lacewings have got to be stewed for 21 days, I'd say it'd be ready in about a month if we can get all the ingredients. A month, said Ron. Malfoy could have attacked half the Muggleborns in the school by then. But Hermione's eyes narrowed dangerously again, and he added, But it's the best plan we've got, so full steam ahead, I say. However, while Hermione was checking that the coast was clear for them to leave the bathroom, Ron muttered to Harry, It'll be a lot less hassle if you can just knock Malfoy off his broom tomorrow. Harry woke early on Saturday morning and lay for a while thinking about the coming Quidditch match. He was nervous, mainly at the thought of what Wood would say if Gryffindor lost, but also at the idea of facing a team mounted on the fastest racing brooms gold could buy. He had never wanted to beat Slytherin so badly. After half an hour of lying there with his insides training, he got up, dressed, and went down to breakfast early, where he found the rest of the Gryffindor team huddled at the long, empty table, all looking uptight and not speaking much. As 11 o'clock approached, the whole school started to make its way down the Quidditch stadium. It was a muggy sort of day, with a hint of thunder in the air. Ron and Hermione came hurrying over to wish Harry good luck as he entered the locker rooms. The team pulled their scarlet Gryffindor robes, then sat down to listen to Wood's usual pre-match pep talk. Slytherin has better brooms than us, he began. No point denying it. But we've got better people on our brooms. We've trained harder than any of they have. We've been flying in all weathers. Too true, muttered George Weasley. I haven't been properly dry since August. And we're going to make them rue the day they let that little bit of slime Malfoy buy his way onto their team. Chest heaving with emotion, Wood turned to Harry. It'll be down to you, Harry, to show them that a seeker has to have something more than a rich father. Get to that snitch before Malfoy or die trying, Harry. Because we've got to win today. We've got to. So no pressure, Harry, said Fred, winking at him. As they walked out onto the pitch, a roar of noise greeted them. Mainly cheers because Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were anxious to see Slytherin beaten. But the Slytherins in the crowd made their boos and hisses heard too. Madam Hooch, the Quidditch teacher, asked Flint and Wood to shake hands, which they did, giving each other threatening stares and gripping each other harder than was necessary. On my whistle, said Madam Hooch. 3, 2, 1. With a roar from the crowd to speed them upward, the 14 players rose toward the leaden sky. Harry flew higher than any of them, squinting around for the snitch. All right there, Scarhead, asked Malfoy, shooting underneath him, as though to show off the speed of his broom. Harry had no time to reply. At that very moment, a heavy black bludger came pelting towards him. He avoided it so narrowly that he felt it ruffle his hair as it passed. Close one, Harry, said George, streaking past him with his club in his hand, ready to knock the bludger back towards the Slytherin. Harry saw George give the bludger a powerful whack in the direction of Adrian. I don't know how to say this guy's last name. Pucey. But the bludger changed direction in mid-air and shot straight for Harry again. Harry dropped quickly to avoid it, and George managed to hit it hard towards Malfoy. Once again, the bludger swerved like a boomerang and shot at Harry's head. Harry put on a burst of speed and zoomed toward the other end of the pitch. He could hear the bludger whistling along behind him. But what was going on? Bludgers never concentrated on one player like this. It was their job to try and unseat as many people as possible. Fred Weasley was waiting for the bludger at the other end. Harry ducked as Fred swung at the bludger with all his might. The bludger was knocked off course. Gotcha, Fred yelled happily. But he was wrong. As though it was magnetically attracted to Harry, the bludger pelted after him one more, and Harry was forced to fly off at full speed. It had started to rain. Harry felt heavy drops fall into his face, splattering on his glasses. He didn't have a clue what was going on in the rest of the game until he heard Lee Jordan, who was commenting, say, Slytherin lead, 60 points to 0. The Slytherin's superior brooms were clearly doing their job, and meanwhile the mad bludger was doing all it could to knock Harry out of the air. Fred and George were now flying so close to him on either side that Harry could see nothing at all except their flailing arms and had no choice to look for the snitch, let alone catch it. Someone's tampered with this bludger, Fred grunted, swinging his bat with all his might as it launched a new attack on Harry. We need time, said George, trying to signal to Wood and stop the bludger, breaking Harry's nose at the same time. Wood had obviously got the message. Madam Hooch's whistle rang out, and Harry, Fred, and George dived for the ground, still trying to avoid the mad bludger. What's going on? Said Wood as the Gryffindor team huddled together, while Slytherins in the crowd jeered. We're being flattened. Fred, George, where were you when that bludger stopped Angela scoring? We were 20 feet above her, stopping the other bludger from murdering Harry, Oliver, said George angrily. Someone's fixed it. It won't leave Harry alone. It hasn't gone for anyone else all game. The Slytherins must have done something to it. But the bludgers have been locked in Madam Hooch's office since our last practice, and there was nothing wrong with them then, said Wood anxiously. Madam Hooch was walking towards them. Over her shoulder, Harry could see the Slytherin team jeering and pointing in his direction. Listen, said Harry as she came nearer and nearer. With you two flying around me all the time, the only way I'm going to catch the snitch is if it flies up my sleeve. Go back to the rest of the team and let me deal with the rogue one. Don't be thick, said Fred. It'll take your head off. Wood was looking from Harry to the Weasleys. Oliver, this is insane, said Alicia Spinnet angrily. You can't let Harry deal with the thing on his own. Let's ask for an inquiry. If we stop now, we'll have to forfeit the match, said Harry, and we're not losing to Slytherin just because of a crazy bludger. Come on, Oliver, tell them to leave me alone. This is all your fault, George said angrily to Wood. Get the snitch or die trying. What a stupid thing to tell him. Madam Hooch had joined them. Ready to resume play, she asked Wood. Wood looked at the determined look on Harry's face. All right, he said. Fred, George, you heard Harry. Leave him alone and let him deal with the bludger on his own. The rain was falling more heavily now. On Madam Hooch's whistle, Harry kicked hard into the air and heard the telltale whoosh of the bludger behind him. Higher and higher Harry climbed. He looped and swooped, spiraled, zigzagged, and rolled. Slightly dizzy, he nevertheless kept his eyes wide open. Rain was speckling his glasses and ran up his nostrils as he hung upside down, avoiding another fierce dive from the bludger. He could hear laughter from the crowd. He knew he must look very stupid, but the rogue bludger was heavy and couldn't change direction as quickly as Harry could. He began a kind of roller coaster ride around the edges of the stadium, squinting through the silver sheets of rain to the Gryffindor goalposts, where Adrian was trying to get past Wood. A whistling in Harry's ear told him the bludger had just missed him again. He turned right over and sped in the opposite direction. Training for the ballet, Potter? Yelled Malfoy as Harry was forced to do a stupid kind of twirl in midair to avoid the bludger. and he fled, the bludger trailing a few feet behind him and then glaring at Malfoy in hatred. He saw the golden snitch. It was hovering inches above Malfoy's left ear, and Malfoy was busy laughing at Harry, hadn't seen it. For an agonizing moment, Harry hung in midair, not daring to speed towards Malfoy in case he looked up and saw the snitch. Wham! He had stayed still a second too long. The bludger had hit him at last, smashed into his elbow, and Harry felt his arm break. Dimly, dazed by the searing pain in his arm, he slid sideways on his rain-drenched broom, one knee still hooked over it, his right arm dangling useless at his side. The bludger came pelting back for a second attack, this time aiming at his face. Harry swerved out of the way, one idea firmly lodged in his numb brain: get to Malfoy. Through a haze of rain and pain, he dived for the shimmering, sneering face below him, and saw its eyes widen with fear. Malfoy thought Harry was attacking him. What the? He gasped, careening out of Harry's way. Harry took his remaining hand off his broom and made a wild snatch. He felt his fingers close on the cold snitch, but was now only gripping the broom with his legs, and there was a yell from the crowd as he was headed straight for the ground, trying hard not to pass out. With a splattering thud, he hit the mud and rolled off his broom. His arm was hanging at a very strange angle, riddled with pain. He heard, as though from a distance, a good deal of whistling and shouting. He focused on the snitch clutched in his good hand. Aha, he said vaguely, we've won, and he fainted. He came around, rain falling on his face, still lying in the field with someone leaning over him. He saw a glitter of teeth. Oh no, not you, he moaned. Doesn't know what he's saying, said Lockhart loudly to the anxious crowd of Gryffindors passing around them. Not to worry, Harry, I'm about to fix your arm. No, said Harry, I'll like to keep it like this, thanks. He tried to sit up, but the pain was unbearable. He heard a familiar clicking noise nearby. I don't want a photo of this, Colin, he said loudly. Lie back, Harry, said Lockhart soothingly. It's a simple charm I've used countless times. Why can't I just go to the hospital wing, said Harry through clenched teeth. He should, really, Professor, said a muddy Wood, who couldn't help grinning even though his seeker was injured. Great capture, Harry, really spectacular. Your best yet, I'd say. Through the thicket of legs around him, Harry spotted Fred and George Weasley wrestling the rogue bludger into a box. It was still putting up a terrific fight. Stand back, said Lockhart, who was rolling up his jade green sleeves. No, don't, said Harry weakly, but Lockhart was twirling his wand and a second later had directed it straight at Harry's arm. A strange and unpleasant sensation started at Harry's shoulder and spread all the way down to his fingertips. It felt as though his arm was being deflated. He didn't dare look at what was happening. He had shut his eyes, his face turned away from his arm, but his worst fears were realized as people above him gasped and Colin Creevey began clicking away madly. His arm didn't hurt anymore, but nor did it feel remotely like an arm. Ah, said Lockhart. Yes, well, that can sometimes happen, but the point is the bones are no longer broken. That's the thing to bear in mind. So, Harry, just toddle up to the hospital wing. Mr. Weasley, Miss Granger, would you escort him? Said Madame Pomfrey. Madame Pomfrey will be able to tidy you up a bit. As Harry got to his feet, he felt strangely lopsided. Taking a deep breath, he looked down at his right side. What he saw nearly made him pass out again. Poking out of the end of his robe was what looked like a thick, flesh-colored rubber glove. He tried to move his fingers, nothing happened. Lockhart hadn't mended Harry's bones. He'd removed them. Madame Pomfrey wasn't at all pleased. You should have come straight to me, she raged, holding up the sad, limp remainder of what, half an hour before, had been a working arm. I can mend bones in a second, but growing them back, you will have to. You will be able to, won't you? Said Harry desperately. I'll be able to, certainly, but it will be painful, said Madame Pomfrey grimly, throwing Harry a pair of pajamas. We'll have to stay the night. Hermione waited outside the curtain drawn around Harry's bed while Ron helped him into his pajamas. It took a while to stuff the rubbery, boneless arm into his sleeve. How can you stick up for Lockhart now, Hermione, eh? Ron called through the curtain as he pulled Harry's limp fingers through the cuff. If Harry had wanted deboning, he would have asked. Anyone can make a mistake, said Hermione, and it doesn't hurt anyone, does it, Harry? No, said Harry, getting into bed, but it doesn't do anything else either. As he swung himself onto bed, his arm flapped pointlessly. Hermione and Madame Pomfrey came around the curtain. Madame Pomfrey was holding a large bottle of something labeled Skelligro. You're in for a rough night, she said, pouring out a steaming beaker full and handing it to him. Regrowing bones is a nasty business, so she was taking the Skelligro. It burned Harry's mouth and throat as it went down, making him cough and splutter. Still tutting about dangerous sports and inept teachers, Madame Pomfrey retreated, leaving Ron and Hermione to help Harry gulp down some water. We won, though, said Ron, a grin breaking across his face. That was some catch you made. Malfoy's face. He looked ready to kill. I want to know how he fixed that bludger, said Hermione darkly. We can add that to the list of questions we'll ask him We'll ask him about when we've taken the polyjuice potion, said Harry, sinking back into his pillows. I hope it tastes better than this stuff. If it's got bits of Slytherins in it, you've got to be joking, said Ron. The door of the hospital wing burst open at the moment. Filthy and soaking wet, the rest of the Gryffindor team had arrived to see Harry. Unbelievable flying, Harry, said George. I've just seen Marcus Flint yelling at Malfoy. Something about having the snitch on top of his head and not noticing. Malfoy didn't seem too happy. They had brought cakes, sweets, and bottles of pumpkin juice. They gathered around Harry's bed and were just getting started on what promised to be a good party when Madame Pomfrey came storming over, shouting, "This boy needs rest. He's got 33 bones to regrow. Out, out!" And Harry was left alone, with nothing to distract him from the stabbing pains in his limp arm. Win, reader, yo. Alright. I have to go. Alex? I have to go. It's making me sleepy too. You'll just have to come back next Friday. Oh, Alex Russo. 100% Alex Russo. Marvel Rivals. Maybe next time. Bye! Bye! Thanks for coming!